Hello everyone. In the last video we talked about the source value and how we can present these values in the Excel. And we reach into this invoice that contains some data on it. However, in the last video we use a function here as well, but we didn't define what is the function and how it can help us in the Excel. So let's talk about a little bit about the functions and what means about the functions. Well, as you remembered in the math, we have the functions, and what that means about the functions, as you remembered, if we have some variables, meaning y, for example, we say that y is equal to the a multiple to x plus b, for example. So this is a simple function that has a variable named x, which can take any value and it says that if I provide the value x, the value y will be x multiple to a, which is the parameter of this function. A parameter is a fixed value that will not change it, and plus b, which is another parameter. So by assuming that we provide the variable x, the variable y will be equal to a multiple to x plus b, and this called b function. So we say that y is equal to function x, which means that if I provide the value x, then I will have the value y based on this function. And it means that when I provide the value x, f(x) will do some operation which the operation is a multiple to x plus b, and then it will provide the value y. So this is the definition of function, that we have some value x provided for function f(x), and then the f(x) will do some operation and it will give us the value y. So what it means in the Excel, we have the same definition. Instead of y, we will have some cells. The cell should have some reference or address, as you know, but we have some cell. This cell, value of this cell will be equal to f, x, z, k, and so on. So these are the arguments. We say in the Excel these as the arguments, which can be the variable or can be a parameter and so on. These are the input of my function. These called inputs, which we call them arguments, and this will be our output. So let's talk about a little bit about the arguments. As we know in the math we have, for example, some variables like z, x, z, y, and so on. which we say that, for example, k is equal to y plus b to multiple to x plus z power 2. And this is some function in the math. So these are the variable, but this one is parameter, which is the constant number, can be 1, 2, and so on. And in the Excel we have the same. We call them other cells. We can input the other cells into our function with their address, and we have some parameters, which is the b, a, and so on, which can be numbers, which are the constant. The difference between the parameters and the variables is that these parameters are constant and we will not change it. And we have these by entering some data, constant data. So in the Excel, we can input the cell's address or cell ranges, the range of the cells, multiple cells, or we can input some constant data. Both of these will be called arguments in the Excel. So the input of the function in the Excel will be called arguments of this function. So let's get back to the Excel. As I told you, if this is the cells that I want to have to be equal to some function, I have to, let's go to another sheet. I don't want to change that. And I want, for example, this cell, B12, be equal to some function. This function can be a simple function as multiplying something. For example, I want to multiply $1.5 to 2 million. I can say that cells B12 will be equal to C2 multiplying to D2. These are the variables actually. It can be variables, but these are the arguments as well. Plus some constant data, for example, 1000. This is the parameter in the function, in the math function. So this is a function that I write it in the cell, and if I press enter, I will have my data as a currency because I multiply the currency. I can change that into the, for example, number if I want, and it's actually the negative value because this one is negative. If I make it positive, it will be positive. So what I did in this function, I wrote the function by myself and say that the value B12 is equal to value C2 multiplying to D2 plus 1000. If I get an image from this to talk about it a little bit, I say that this cell is equal to, this cell can be assumed as a x, and this cell which can be assumed as y plus b, which is the constant number 1000. So this is the function I wrote it by myself, and this is the, actually I can say B12 is equal to f x and y, which is x plus y plus 1000. So this is a simple function. However, in the Excel we have some previous written function that we can use. For example, if I just want to sum these three cells together and put the values into C12, I can write that by saying that B2 plus C2 plus D2, and this is written here as my summation. However, there is another function in the Excel which is written before by the Microsoft, and it says that, for example, I want to say that C30 is equal to summation of these three cells, so I can use equal and wrote the name of the function I want to use, which is the summation, is the sum. Open the parentheses for entering the arguments of this function. Select my range of the cells, which is my variables, and close the parentheses and press the enter. So I will have my value here. What I did in here, the Excel function, let me get another image from this view. So what I did, I said that this function, this cell C13 is equal to sum, open the parentheses, I put my argument x as the cell range, and Excel do sum operation, which is the adding these three values together, do sum operation, and give me the resulted value. So what is this sum means? This is the function that previously written by Microsoft Office, and Excel knows that when I wrote the sum name, Excel understands me that I want to use this previously written function. So there are some previously written function, and when I call them by their name, this is the name of my function. When I call them by name, Excel will understand what I mean and do some operation on the input values and give me the result. So this is a really simple function. We have around more than 600 functions in the Excel, and if I want to use one of these, I just need to call their name. Okay, just call their name. Excel will understand them. Then put the arguments in the parentheses. So this is the place which we have to put the arguments. However, as I told you, this is the previously written in the Office. This is a previously written function in the Office. And when I call this function, I have to put some arguments in it, the arguments that this function will understand. I can write the function in the cell or in the formula bar. If I press on the FAX notation here, it will opens the formula for me, function for me, and it introduces you the function arguments and the meaning of the function. So as you can see, I put the B2 double dot D2 to saying that this is a range, and then Excel understand me and give me the result. And in the bottom of this box, Excel shows you a help for you to understand what this function means. It's the introduction of this function, which says that it adds all the numbers in the range of the cells This is what the function does, what the operation of this function, and this is the introduction of the argument. Say that number one argument, which I selected here, number one arguments is the number one, number two, and so on, and can be a numbers 1 to 20, 255 numbers. So I can have 255 numbers here, go to until these numbers, for summing them up. So I can put some cell range here, I can put some numbers here, I can put some cells here as well. For example, I wanted to sum up the F, let's see, E2 as well, and F2 as well. So I introduced them into the another arguments of this function without saying that this is the range, and it can understand me. And also I can put some constant value as well, for example 1 or 2, 3, and so on, until 255 arguments, as you can see here. So I can put them manually, or I can set a range here. If I want to set a range here, I have to say what is my first cell and use double dots and then use the last cell. So if I want to sum up the values from the B2 until the F2, I just need to say that it's start from the B2 double dot until the F2. Then I do not need to add them the cell one by one in the arguments. So this is how I can input the arguments into the function and then press the OK, and then it will calculate the value for me. However, if you do not put the arguments as it's defined in this function, for example, if you do not work as it says, it gives you an error. For example, if you put this empty, there is no error. But if you put some text values instead of the number values and press the OK button, it's give you an error, which is the name error. You put wrong arguments here. Or as you know, in the function you have to write the text value in the double quotation. However, if you do that as well, it will give you the value error. The name error says that I do not understand the Armin means. It's not the variable, it's not the function, I don't know. But if you put that into the double quotation, it understands that it's a text value, but you cannot sum up the text values with the number values. So it gives you the value error. So the different errors has a different meanings. The first one, which is the name error, is because it's a result because I put the wrong thing in the arguments, and Excel did not understand what Armin means. But if I use a function that can understand it by the Excel, for example, if I use another sum in the Excel and told that this sum is, for example, arguments is this, it will understand that and it's give me the result as well. So what that means, it means that in the Excel, if I have a function, for example, cell here, cell 30 is equal to function name, for example, f sum x. This f(x) can be a function as well, can be equal to the some function for example f of y and f z. So in the total, if I sum up here, cell 13 will be equal to f of y plus f z, which is the f8. As I do that here, I say that cell 13 is a summation of cell 13 is the summation of some parameters or some values or something, and also a summation of something else. So it's the actually f(x) and x and the f of y and so on. So this is the function in the function, and I can use that as well. So this is the two things. If I use something that function cannot understand, it will bring the error and give me an error, and the errors have a different meaning. For example, we see the name error, which says that Excel did not understand what I write it here. For example, if I write the armin here, it says that I do not understand the armin meanings as a function you used here. And if you use the wrong arguments, for example, armin in the double quotations, Excel will understand that this is a text value, but the text value is a wrong argument for some function, and it cannot be used. So this is another error. So we see the sum function, but I told you there are around 600 functions in the Excel. How can we understand their names? The first thing you noted when I entered the equation notation here and start writing some characters, for example A characters, Excel will automatically propose you some function that started with the A character, for example ABS, and told you what this function will do. It says that ABS returns the absolute value of number, a number without its sign. Or for example, I can see I have the average function as well, which returns the average arithmetic means of its arguments. So I just need to write the first thing for example, if I want to have the let's call, for example, power this value to the number 2, I know I have to make it power, and the power function will start with the P. So I can use P and go around the function to see what function it has and see their names, and I can see the power function is here, which is returns the result of a number raised to the power. So I can use this function. The name of the function mostly are near to what we know in the math or in the work we are doing that. But however, it can be some mere changes, and you have to notice if I want to use a function, I have to call its name exactly what is the Excel understand. I will give you an example. For example, I want to right now this function, this value be powered to 2, and it calculate that and show me the result as the scientific number if I want to see the number in the. So this is how functions work. But I told you, for example, I want to get some average from these two. the average somewhere calls mean. In the Excel, it knows the average function. If I can use this, but if someone come here and use the mean name for getting the average or getting the mean of, for example, these values, I can write that, but Excel will not understand what I mean. I have to use the average function, which Excel understands. So do not rely on your words in the math or somewhere else. For example, in financial, do not rely on what the function you previously know, but they are near to them. You can search them by name and search with what function it has. Another way to find out what function you can use, you can go to the formula tab here, and in the function library there are some categories. For example, if I want to do some statistical works, I can go to the more function and see the statistical category to choose between them. If I go and stop on one of them, Excel will show you what this function is and what is its arguments as well. Or if I want to manipulate some texts, I can go to the text function, and in the text function I have some functions that are sorted alphabetically, and if I come here and stop on one of those with my mouse, it will show you the meaning of this function and the arguments it has. This is another way. There is another way to find function, which is using the formula tabs in the insert function, and here you can see the categories as well, and or you can find them by searching here. If you stop on one of them, it shows the name and the arguments and the summarized meaning of this function, as well as you can search them. If for example I want to search average, for example I want to search mean of data, so I know the mean, I know the word mean for getting the average, but I couldn't find the correct function for myself to using to calculating the arithmetic mean. So I just write something to Excel and say that I do not know the category, so it can be in the whatever category here, and I place the go and it searched for me the function that has the mean in it, for example, and I can see which of these functions will be good for myself. For example, here I can see there is average A, for example, or the average as well. So there is no mean function, but there is average function I can use, and this is what I wanted. And this is how I can find, this is another way I can find the function in the Excel. And another way to find and understand the function is searching in the Google. So if you search in the Google what you want in the Excel, there's 1,000 of the websites that can help you to work on it. So this is the meaning of the function in the Excel, and this is how you can use them. And what I want to do is here I want to each of these cells be equal to multiplying the quantity into the unit price. I can use drag it until the end. It will update the formula for me in each cell and give me the result. However, it changed the formats. I can change them by using the format painter. For example, by using this. And on the other hand, I wanted the total, so I can use the sum function here as well and select the range I want to get the sum and close the parentheses and press the enter, so I have the range I have the summation of my total sales in my invoice. If you find out that this video is useful for you, please subscribe into our YouTube channel and like our videos, and see our website yaku.co.uk and see our products as well. Thanks a lot and goodbye.